Have you ever sat there and felt that games these days are just trash? No? Okay, well move on then, because this video probably won't impress you. Hi, I'm Wiglord, and it's been a long time since I've uploaded much actual dev work to the public face on my channel, but I've spent the past few years designing systems to counter issues I've been finding in today's online gaming space. Online gaming, in my experience, used to be a fun-filled exploratory adventure. I grew up enamoured at the upcoming Ultima Online after seeing advertising of it during its development, touting a role-playing adventure space to share with others in a vast world of sword and sorcery with my favourite isometric pixel art aesthetic. I didn't get into the game until much later when there were samurai and necromancers, and what I found was certainly not what I'd been envisioning it to be all those years, but there was at least a sparkle of hope that forever sat with me. Nowadays, I find that online gaming has been filled with more and more redundant copycat games designed to only hold the spotlight for a few months at best, and fleece the customer of funds through constant subscription passes of varying tiers, whilst offering very little by way of actual game. My friends and I have sunk countless hours into these games. Some of them provide that adrenaline-filled hit that, like many other nefarious interests, starts to wane. These games leave you chasing a dragon, with each new hit costing you more and more. But in the dev space, we scoff at the idea of a single game that is the be-all and end-all game, where you will never have to play another game in your life. The idea seems silly, and limiting to us as gamers. But long ago, when there was a much slower pipeline for delivery of games, this didn't seem like too far-fetched an idea. Classic titles which still get played today were staples in every household. It was what people played. We still have some semblance of these games today. Titles like Fortnite and GTA are long-standing games, but they modified their design to allow a plethora of diverse gaming to maintain player retention, becoming metaverse platforms rather than a singular tried-and-true game loop. But gaming itself has changed. Now most of the revisited games, particularly the online ones, are revisited for the social aspect. Gone are the days of hitting the pub after work. Instead, we get our socialising via shared interactions in virtual worlds. So we can bring back the idea of a single game that you play forever, not because it has the gameplay you want, but because it has the community you want to be part of. This is also another reason why I think a lot of popular online-based titles die soon after launch, but that's a whole other tangent to go down. This video is meant to be about me making my dream game, an MMO. Now you hear those words and you think, how can you possibly make an MMO as a solo indie developer? Well, I've put up a few videos about that now, but suffice to say, an MMO as a genre carries with it grand expectations, but MMO as a descriptor is much different. World of Warcraft and other big industry titans cemented the common understanding of what an MMO is meant to be, but this is flawed, because World of Warcraft itself was shaped by what worked to keep people interested enough to pay for it to stay online. But it doesn't actually define a massive multiplayer online scope. And to be fair, I use the term flippantly, as I don't actually plan on having more than 60 players on a single server at any one time, due to design elements, so the massive phrase should be replaced with small scale. But enough of this posturing, let's actually get into what's happened and why I am now making this video. Legends of Aria, which was an attempted spiritual successor to Ultima Online, is moving into a new phase, with a new release. If you've seen my older videos on the game, you might be questioning why this new release would be a good thing. But suffice to say, this new release is advertised as a step in a different direction, much closer to the original pitch for Shards Online. The idea will be that rather than fronting a lot of the cost and admin of a primary server, the game will be released to the community to develop their own content and hosting solution. But it's not just hosting the main game. Having the server files gives the host the ability to modify it as they wish, to develop new and entertaining servers. These can range from minor edits to full-blown conversion. And that's where my new project comes in. I've already gotten access to the beta testing for the new version, and with it, I've been putting all my designs for various morpg systems into practice. While the game interface and controls still resemble the base Aria game, I have radically altered the systems and replaced them in many areas with my own. A lot of these systems were designed based on what I saw the original game fail to achieve in areas, as well as new ideas that I wanted to test out. And currently, I've implemented half of my roadmap goals, and I'm preparing it for testing with external parties. What I've been able to implement and test myself so far has blown my mind at how great this new release will be, and how perfect it is for me to test out my systems. So what have I actually changed, and why is it so cool? Well, the main changes are the entire RPG structure. Aria was built similar to Ultima Online, where you have a set list of skills that increase the more they are used. It's pretty standard fare for role-playing games. You increase a value and do more damage. But in Encardia, I use a different combat model, using a dice-based system modelled off the HeroQuest board game. This simplifies the required understanding of damage and combat, giving everyone the ability to get a full grasp of the system without having to dig deep into the mathematic equations. But while it's simple to understand, it doesn't lack depth. Encardia still uses skills. In combat, we rely on both our skill level with the weapon equipped, but a skill level based on the genome of the monster we're fighting. You may be a master swordsman, but if you've spent your life fighting goblins, you may not be as good at fighting zombies. This allows players to actually sculpt their character beyond a meta build by creating unique skill sets, and is designed to encourage cooperative play, with players forming parties to tackle challenges based on the specialisation of others. With this, we had to redesign our stats system to match our switch to dice roll combat. With this, we now utilise our stat pools differently. Mana and stamina play a big part in combat, with your ability to attack and defend being reliant on having points remaining in those pools. Now, you may not have to kill an enemy to defeat them, sap their stamina, and they will be unable to move, barely able to defend themselves, sap their mana, and they will fall unconscious and be at the mercy of you. With this, each player has to understand they too are susceptible to this. Mages with big spells might be powerful, but have to balance what they can afford to cast with how vulnerable it may make them. This affects the warrior, rogue and wizard archetypes, which I call the triad balance, in equal measure. With this change, I had to update all the items and the monster templates to suit, but now you have an easy to understand, difficult to master combat system that presents what I hope is a fun and engaging action element to MMORPG combat. Another new system is the spell crafting one. I find static spell lists boring. Knowing that I can cast the same level 3 fireball as any other mage doesn't excite me, and I feel lets down the idea of magic in general. I want magic in my game to be incredibly powerful, but take a lot of time and skill to achieve. So I've developed a freeform spell crafting system where you mix reagents with varying values to create your own unique spell. Granted, you're still casting a fireball if you want to, but it's using a recipe you discover through experimentation. Others might have a fireball, but using a different recipe. This also allows for mixing of spell effects, so your fireball might do a burn over time damage effect, but someone else's fireball might teleport the target halfway across the world. But maybe you want something more nefarious than a fireball. Maybe you were outcast by the community for stealing a loaf of bread, and maybe you're stuck in your wizardly tower brooding over the insult, so you summon a horde of goblins and then use a wide teleport spell to send that horde into the middle of the safe zone town to wreak havoc. That's something that the spellcrafting system allows for, and yes, I have tested that out, so don't pick a fight with me. The last of the grand changes I've made is to remove the ability for the player to craft items. This may seem like a travesty of injustice, but hear me out. One of the big problems I saw with Aria, and even in some larger MMO titles, is the crafting progression. Most titles handle crafting as a grind quest to get to the desired level, to create the one item type you want. This tedium is meant to draw out your time and limit the effect on the economy. In Aria in particular, this fell down as crafting was a literal grind, using materials on wasted crafts, which would be put to market to offset the loss. But with everyone grinding away, all those basic items became a flood, and everyone would sell to undercut the previous store just to try and recover some amount to purchase new materials with. This led to crafted items selling for less value than the materials used to make it, and within short order, the only retailer selling anything was the one shop closest to the starting area. This led to a lot of other problems with the game, but I'm not taking out crafting entirely. Instead, crafting will be done by NPCs, ones that can specialise in certain crafts. These NPCs can be purchased by settlers, which is a new system I have designed. Instead of just placing a house plot, you're placing a village plot. You will get to run your own town, with non-player characters that follow a daily cycle of eating, working, socialising and sleeping. You provide materials and place work orders for crafted items. You can also get NPCs to help harvest those materials, letting you and your guild focus on adventuring. But along with these orders, you can now also set up a retailer in your village that can sell these crafted goods to the public. Settlements aren't meant to be for everyone, but by creating and leveling your crafter down specific lines, you can grow your store's reputation amongst the server populace and be the go-to trader for that gear. This design is intended to control the economy, removing the tedious elements of crafting and opening up avenues for cooperative trade between groups and individuals. But that's what I've implemented so far. More is to come, with the introduction of the Cosmic Quest system, which is a singular quest carried out across the whole server. No longer will you be waiting in queue to deliver your 10 wolf pelts, because once that NPC has received the 10 pelts he needed, he wouldn't need any more. I have a few other videos talking about the Cosmic Quest system for more info, but this is one of the more unique ideas I have in store. Dynamic growing dungeons is another. Instead of preset dungeon locations and layouts, I will have dynamic spawning dungeons that grow the longer they are left unconquered. The idea here fits into lore, but gameplay-wise, you may stumble across a newly formed dungeon that will have minimal danger and riches. You might decide to leave it be, so it can grow and offer more rewards. But in doing so, you also risk wandering bands of monsters causing havoc across the nearby settlements. This dynamic system will help keep dungeon delving fresh and offer the chance at fancy and unique loot for the lucky adventurer. Handling player versus enemy is a tricky scenario for online gaming. You want the safety to enjoy the game, but from time to time you want to do some trickery and ruin someone else's day. Achieving a balance here is difficult, but the current plan is to have two split areas. The safe area is the surface world, where any criminal act is punishable by instant criminal status, and transport to the wilderness, which is an underground series of caves. Criminal status is permanent, and death while criminal means permadeath. This isn't to discourage criminal activity. I still want players to enjoy some PvP shenanigans, but it places you at a level of risk that you have to be sure it's what you want. But like I said earlier, just because you're trapped in the underworld doesn't mean you can't have fun terrorizing the surface dwellers. You can teleport your minions to seek revenge on the top side if you study hard enough. There's a few other wider ranging alterations and new implementations that I'm looking forward to experimenting with. But here I said I was making my own MMO. Is this it? Well, no, not entirely. I'm modifying this game in order to test out my designs for new systems, to experiment and see what does and doesn't work out well. When I'm happy I have some solid working concepts, I'm going to raise a crowdfunding campaign to fund the creation of a built-from-scratch game, a third-person action combat client that will utilise the systems I've fleshed out in Encardia, the first stage. This will help me skip through a lengthy, early access period that usually kills a lot of the love for new developing titles, but also lets people who are interested have something fun to play and help build while we develop. With that, thanks for watching. Drop a like and a comment if you're interested in some of the design points in here, or if you have feedback, and I'll post more about the development and the server testing phases as time progresses.